I took a field trip to the fifth dimension and I want to tell you about it. So, welcome back, everyone, to the Cam Hogan experience. Today, I want to talk about this very spiritual, metaphysical experience that I had a few days ago. And this experience really helped me understand and really feel so much of what I've kind of known to be true for so long. And as a preface, I want you to know that take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. Trust your own life experience. I am someone who is 25 and self-proclaims as someone who does not read books, doesn't do any research, doesn't even watch movies, documentaries, anything on this topic. I literally just live my life and things happen to me. And I do my best to find the words to help describe what those things are. So, all that being said, a handful of days ago, I feel like I took a field trip to 5D. What do I mean by that? First off, it has become very clear to me that there are different dimensions, different densities in this world, in this universe. And as many of you know, planet Earth, and the far majority of us that live on there, lives in the 3D, third dimension. And that's all great. We have the five senses that we're all aware of. That's just how we operate. And there's also different dimensions on top of that. There's 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D. I'm not sure how high it goes. Some say 9, some say 12, whatever it may be. Very few of us have any experiences in our lifetimes that would make us have an understanding that there is more than just these five senses. But over the past handful of years, I've had multiple experiences that show me that there's more to this universe than we can ever fathom. And so I've heard a few times from spiritual mentors that I follow closely, and just other conversations that just happen to come into my life, whether I overhear it at a coffee shop or I just feel the urge, okay, go on YouTube right now and look up this title. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And I do. And I watch the first video, whatever it is. I'm always just being what I feel like is intuitively drawn to the right information at the right time. And I bring this up because there's been information I've come across for the past handful of years that aligns very closely with an experience that I had a few days ago. And this experience happened on, today's Wednesday, happened on Monday. And I was having just kind of a rough day. And every time I have a rough day, it's always right before a big breakthrough. Don't know why, but just for some reason, I feel sad. I don't want to work out. I don't want to work. I don't want to eat. I just want to be a couch potato and be in a grumpy mood, throw a little bit of a tantrum. Don't know why. But that was happening Monday. And then also got the intuitive thing of like, you know what, tonight I'm going to take some cannabis and I'm going to lay down, do some heavy breathing, and I'm just going to see what happens. And so the evening came across and I'm like, okay, time to do this. So I go to my guest bedroom. I take a cannabis little edible thing that I do. And it was definitely probably double the dosage of what I would normally do. And I'm very experienced with this and other psychedelics, so I'm very confident and comfortable with how I do things there. But I took that, and then I went into my guest bedroom, put some crystals around, lit some candles, all the other spiritual things that that I've learned to be very powerful. And I listened to some music that was very high vibe. It was a bunch of mantras for the most part that really just make you feel good. Every ounce of your being just feels at its peak potential when you put yourself in those states. And so I did that, and then I started doing some heavy breath work. And this is something I never practiced beforehand, didn't plan on doing, but just in the moment, it's like I was being guided. I was being told, like, breathe. And to do that for however long was necessary. And so I just started that, and The songs that were playing just felt really nice and cool. Just like, whoa, this feels amazing. I don't know what's going on. And then I felt this voice in the back of my head, like I've felt for very long, in parts to what I do for a living as an intuitive healer. So I listen to that voice and I just say or do what it is that it says. This voice said, ask to see what it'd be like to be the highest version of yourself, to feel what it'd be like to be the highest version of yourself. And so I'm like, all right. And so I'm like, I set my intention, this ceremony, this experience, to see and feel what it would be like to embody the highest version of myself to a level that is possible in the near future. So I did that. And then the voice like, all right, keep breathing, keep breathing. So when we starting to feel the edible kind of kick in, you just kind of the cannabis feeling that can happen. They wanted me, other than having my hands right here across my chest and stomach, they wanted me to widen them and continue breathing. So I did. And then it got to this point where, oh man, this is really going to go there. I said, we're really getting spiritual. There are certain realms that we can tap into that are beyond the human body. Again, like are beyond the five senses. One of these is the astral realm. There's such thing as astral projection, astral travel. Many psychics from around the world, even those that work for governments, that work for very powerful companies, work for, they're everywhere. A lot of people, everything I'm doing, you have access to. It's just something that we haven't yet unlocked in this video game of life. Let me get that very clear. But we can astrally travel. And so in this experience, I realized my body and mind and beingness was ready to astral travel. And so I'm like, all right, let's do it. I felt my body, or my beingness, if you want to call it my soul, I don't really know what the word would be, but my beingness came out of my body and began to rise, where it didn't have the same constrictions as the human body. If I got to stay within this wall, unless I get up on my feet and I walk out the room, whatever it is. You know, this astral body can go through any object. It's made of a different type of matter. And so I began to rise past my roof of my house, the ceiling, my roof, and began to just go in the sky. And I felt like this was all one big symbolic metaphor, but this is just the experience that I could project through my mind at this moment. And I felt as if I was different realm. Like I feel like this is 4D. I don't know what this is, but I feel like this is 4D. Didn't know why. I just felt that way. And again, these are all just terms that I have very little understanding of, but these are just the words that come to me to express this experience. But this fourth dimension, I realized, and this is again reaffirming everything I've ever been told, is that the entities that guide and dictate human behavior live in the 4D. And as I was beginning to rise, I remember the paranoia within me of, all right, what's going on in the house? You know, I'm provide and protect. Is there anyone at the door? Is everyone safe? Okay, Elle's downstairs. Is she all right? Is everything okay? That part of me became very loud, to the point where I got like kind of scared. I remember hearing very vividly, even though I'm astrally outside of my body, I'm still connected to my body to know if I hear something within my body, it'll be sent up to me. It'll be sent up to my being. And so I began to connect as I'm rising. I began to connect with my body still. And I would hear like loud running footsteps down the hallway right next to the spare bedroom. And I'm like, what's going on? Is Elle coming to, do something? And so I immediately come out of the astral realm, go back in my body. I had an eye mask on for a blindfold. I took the blindfold off. I'm like, what's going on? Everything was fine. No problem. So I'm like, That was weird. All right. Put the eye mask back on, continue the breathing, begin to enter the astral realm again. And then 30 seconds later, I hear a loud knock on the door, as if like the FBI was about to, tear down my front door, right? And so again, I'm like, what's going on? Astral body comes back in the human body. I wake up, I put on the eye mask, and I'm like, trying to listen, and I'm like, I hear nothing. What's going on? And so I'm like, that's so odd. But I'm like, all right, let's continue. I put back on the eye mask. I get myself in the mood again. I'm breathing. Go back up, more than ever before. And then I begin to hear these like loud voices. And these voices at first, like, hey, Cam, hey. They were kind of like, there's always like that one character in the movies. I think of it's come to me like, in Dora the Explorer, there's like Swiper the Fox. That's kind of like mischievous, doesn't want what's best for you, but it's like trying to befriend you, like, hey, bud. It's a lot of that in my head. I'm like, what is going on? Am I hallucinating right now? What's happening? And then I had this voice in the back of my head, which I always get for so many different things. And it was like, these are all distractions. These are all distractions. These are all distractions. And then my thinking part of my mind, based upon everything I know, I'm like, oh my gosh. Entities live at this 4D level, which means even dark entities live here. And I'm like, if I'm rising right now, I'm not trying to show the highest version of myself. What's stopping me from being the highest version of myself are the darkness within me. Very simple. To become enlightened, fully of the light, it takes a subtraction of darkness. And so as I'm astrally traveling through the 4D, and I'm still kind of sidetracked, I know the voice is telling me, keep on breathing, keep on looking straight, don't give them any oxygen, don't give them any air, just keep going. The voice didn't identify what it was, but my mind was like, oh my gosh, these are dark entities right now that just exist in this world, which is very much true, trying to distract me and dissuade me from continuing to rise in this astral realm. And so time goes on, and the entities get louder, but the voice in my head is also being very calm, being like, stay focused, just breathe. They're all distractions. It got to the point where these, what would have been at the beginning, like I said, a running down the stairs, a loud knock on the door, to then like these, it feels like things were communicating with me that had that mischievous type of, hey, let me take advantage of you type thing, turned into these very vivid, I won't go into full detail here because this is, I mean, as you can probably imagine, the most heinous imagery that you can possibly think of. Like visions of everything I've ever loved being completely destroyed. Like, I'll just say that. As I began to continue rising, those voices, those visions became very intense. And I say intense because it actually didn't feel super intense because I was listening to the voice back in my head that just said, hey, keep going. It's all okay. But the distractions were loud. Imagine like Kobe at the free throw line. Game 7 of the finals. Where everyone's like, whoa! They're like the crowd's behind them. They're flipping up their shirt. They're going crazy, whatever it is. And he's just like, just focus. Just focus. It's just the ball, the backboard, the net, the rim. That's it. It felt like that. And so it wasn't like it was this super traumatic event by any means, but it was an escalation of distraction that turned to a point where it felt so dystopian, that it felt so dark, that it would say, do anything to keep me at a certain level of awareness, to keep me in a certain level of fear, so that I wouldn't ascend, that it made it very clear that what is going on is a spiritual warfare. This is something I've known for a very long time. Has been a very strong spiritual warfare of light and darkness for tens of thousands of years that have sculpted all of society, all religions, everything. It made it very clear that these entities are legit entities that do not take the form of a being, even they channel in ways that can, for some people. They have a deeper control of our psyche than we ever could possibly imagine. That being said, they are all voluntary, which means if we have the awareness of it, we can choose not to have them disrupt our life, disrupt our vision, disrupt our path. And so this experience became, even though at one terms it was somewhat scary, now that I think about it, it felt like this rite of passage for me to understand what is actually going on at the higher realms and how the darkness can manifest in whatever way it needs to distract us from returning to a state of being, a vibration that is aligned with our truest essence. And so, as it got immensely intense, like the scariest of scariest movies, but again, I'm not giving it my number one focus like into this camera right now. I can just see them happening in my peripheral vision. But as I focus on the light, as I focus on going forward, as I focus on rising, as my body does, I hit this point where the only way I can describe it, it was like this crust, this outer shell of what is this world. I was able to burst through it. It was like a very strong bubble, to say the least. You can feel some friction around the crust, around the shell area. Then once you're through, you're through. And I could be completely wrong. And again, this is just a word that feels right for me in this moment. I believe I entered the fifth dimension. I'm not sure it was a fifth dimension, fifth density, whatever it was. I was in a world where I was now floating above the darkness, floating above the 3D. And from this world, I can choose to have a similar experience as if I still had a body. But all of the fear, hatred, resentment, guilt, shame had been eradicated from my body. The darkness had been eradicated from my body. It felt like I entered this other version of Earth that was literally outside the shell of how we're currently living. That was nothing but love and light. I felt the most free I've ever felt my entire life, by far. It felt like gravity had lessened, so you can float around as if I can imagine being on the moon would be. And you could be dancing, you could be just pure joy, bliss. It was all perfect. But it also showed in that dimension people having an impact on those below in the best way possible, sending them blessings, sending them light. They had these abilities to manifest and create literally out of nothing. And all tension, everything in my life that isn't aligned with the light had been eradicated. It felt like a glimpse of what New Earth would be. But it made it very clear to me that this is possible if I vibrate at my highest timeline, if I become the highest version of myself over a period of eradication. I don't even say time because time does not exist, but over a process of eradicating all that does not serve me, we can all enter this state that feels like heaven on earth. And this is, I just felt it in the moment. This is the state that someone like Osho, that definitely someone like Yeshua or Jesus, Buddha, all the ones that we talk about, this was a state in which they had access to. It felt like that state, and this could just be my perspective, was a state that some choose to live in for a very long period of time. Again, time doesn't really exist, but this is how my mind can fathom it at this moment. But there are some that choose to live in the hallway between that world and this world. And they do so to help guide those from the 3D up to the 5D. And it made it just so very clear that that's what I'm here to do. So very clear that my one job on this planet is to help others ascend with me to that realm. Because that is a realm that was originally intended for us to be living in. That is a realm that is legit heaven on earth. I'm still alive. I'm still a being. I'm still all these other things. But on this planet Earth experience, I can maintain with that level of symbiosis with myself, harmony within, and harmony with the external world, a legit heaven on earth. I can't make this shit up, people. And I'm not saying all this to sell you how to get there. I don't know. Like, I'm just doing my best. I don't know. It feels like my third day out here, you know? That being said, I had that experience. I feel like I was probably there in our real time for probably about 15 to 20 minutes. And the whole time, this voice was like, hey, this is just a field trip. Enjoy it. See what it's like. And then we're going to bring you back down. And so I'm like, all right, sounds good. I'm going to stay up here. Boom, boom. I was just having a blast. It was a great time. Literally no care in the world. Imagine, being a child on the playground, but the playground has no constraints at all. There's infinite amounts of everything. That's what it felt like. Even gravity within itself is less constrictive. And so this voice was like, all right, have fun. Do your thing. And then he got to the point, I was like, all right, now time to go back down. And I was actually excited to go back down. I'm like, this is incredible. But also, like, life down there is pretty cool too. Like, I understand why I'm here now. This makes sense. Here to help people get there. And so I start to go down. And it feels like this, and I've skydived a few times, so it feels kind of like you're parachuting back down into this world. And on the way down, thankfully, none of the entities messed with me. The dark entities. So I just was able to slowly flow back. And then as I'm floating back, just how it works, I promise you it's all connected. Number one, the playlist I had this whole time, which is probably going on for an hour, all the songs were happening at the perfect timing. The perfect timing. As I hit that crust, like that shell into what I think was the 5D, a song came on and it was like, welcome, welcome to the love dimension. And that's, of course, like, as it was incredible. So as I was coming down, it was just the fun, like the most fun songs I ever could imagine. It was like by Barry White, this old like African-American singer who I love, just been on a kick with him recently. He is just incredible. But the songs were like disco type songs. It was like me just celebrating being back. And so I have the headphones and still I'm just like waving my hands like, duh. It was awesome. I begin to come back into my body. it felt like the moment I was back in my body, Elle walked in the room to check on me. She's like, "Hey, Faye, how was it?" And I'm like, "Oh, you have no idea." And she's like, "Oh, that's good." And she's like, "I just did this for the podcast. I did this for this, did this for that. And then I did this." And I'm like, "Uh-huh. Amazing." And she's like, "You have a good time?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so it was so wild to hear like that experience. And then she tell me like the most technical 3D stuff ever of like, "Oh yeah, then I created this document." Like, welcome back, welcome back to the real world. And it was just, I was like, "Baby, if only you knew what I just went through, what I just experienced." It was so funny. But as you can probably see and feel right now, I'm immensely grateful for this experience. And I'm so excited to see what experiences may be like that in the future. And I'm immensely grateful for the clarity and understanding of what I believe that was and how I can best guide people there, guide myself back home, it feels. Oh, and saying that, that those are taglines I've been saying ever since I began this awakening journey a handful of years ago. It's time to awaken. I'm here to, guide you home. Whatever that place was, it felt like more like home than I've ever seen before. And I don't think that was, and again, it's all vibration, right? Every dimension is a different vibration. It's like we're graduating from one to another. I don't think that was like Jesus Christ level vibration. I think he may have been sixth. I don't know what was going on there. I have no idea. At least that's where his soul was parked at that moment. I have no idea how that works. And I'll probably learn. And after putting this out, I'm just going to just how life works. I'll attract the right people that have had similar experiences and that can help me better understand what's going on. But whatever that was, incredible, amazing. And just was a really good reminder for me of what it's all about. And it's so funny, like I said in the beginning of this recording, that day I had this was a very kind of not so great day, just doing my thing and not wanting to go to the gym, not wanting to do anything. Oftentimes, I feel like my body's kind of preparing for something bigger happening later that day. And so if you're having a bad day, if you're just in a mood, what if it's happening for a reason? I'm not saying you're going to have this type of experience, but I'm saying what if in your own way, your body is, or your mind, your being is resetting, upgrading, shedding, whatever it may be. And so I understand not that many people listening to this will understand. This is what it's like to be on the edge and leading a new wave of experiences and embodiment that not that many people yet have understood. These are the exact same experiences that are written about by the best yogis, gurus that ever exist. There's been dozens, hundreds, thousands of books written on this for thousands of years, many of which have been purposely eradicated and gotten rid of. That's neither here nor there. This type of awareness, these type of experiences, is beginning to be remembered by a large group of people. And I'm here not as the leader, but a leader in this space. So, yeah, it just felt right to say that. But what a time to be alive, y'all. What a time to be alive. I think we have a lot of room to be optimistic about what's going on because it's a wild one. I'll tell you that. All right, y'all. That's it for me. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of the Cam Hogan Experience, and we'll see you soon. Love y'all.